welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. All right, so paid question for Mark. He writes, "Hi Austin, I would be interested to know your opinion regarding the present and future value of my watch. It's a GMT Master 16700. All right, so this is a straight GMT as opposed to a GMT Master 2. On this watch, the 24-hour hand and the local hour hand are paired. They're synced. And so to use the 24-hour function, you need to use the bezel, as opposed to a GMT Master 2, where the 24-hour hand and the local hour hand can be detached and set independently. And if you're a GMT purist, this is the one to have because it functions like the very first GMT that was released in 1954. And the way it functioned up until 1983 when Rolex released the GMT Master 2, the Fat Lady, or the Sophia Loren as it's nicknamed. And they started making the GMT and the GMT Master 2 concurrently up until 1999 when they discontinued the 16700, which is what Mark has. And they continued the line as the GMT Master 2 into the 2000s. All right, so this is an A serial watch first sold by the Ernest Jones Rolex AD in February 2000. This watch was reportedly the very last GMT Master imported into the UK. All right, that makes sense because an A serial watch would be 1999. They would have produced it in 1999. It would have taken a couple months to get to Britain, and then it would have sold early 2000s in February. So I don't know if you can prove that. If you can, it could bring a little bit more value to the watch, but regardless, it's a cool story. It has a Swiss-only superluminova dial, which was only featured in watches made in 1998 and 1999, making this particular watch quite rare. They only produced the Swiss-only dial, yes, for 2 years, but for some reason, at least here in Japan, it doesn't go for a premium. So that's kind of strange. I don't know if it will in the future, but even though they only produced the Swiss-only dials for a couple of years, it doesn't seem to affect the prices, at least as of yet. So I don't know if that'll change though. He says, "I'm fortunate to have the original Ernest Jones Rolex price list and catalog, along with everything that came with the watch when new." And he writes that he paid £3,195 for this GMT in October 2014, and he's considering selling it. All right, so before we talk about the present and future value of the watch, let's just take a look, because it's kind of interesting, at the Ernest Jones Rolex price list. Very interesting. So you can see here, it's listed the 16700, Oyster Perpetual Date, GMT Master, chronometer, 31 jewels, black dial with applied gold figures. So they're talking about the gold indices, the white gold indices, blue-red, so they're talking about the bezel there, as illustrated, or all black. Okay, interesting. So I guess they didn't make a Coke, which makes sense because the Coke first came out in 1983 on the Fat Lady, the 16760, the Sophia Loren, the very first GMT Master 2. So that's sort of the quintessential GMT Master 2 color, the Coke. So it makes perfect sense that you couldn't get it on this straight GMT. It says here, synthetic sapphire crystal steel with oyster lock bracelet. That's interesting. So the flip lock, I guess it's called an oyster lock bracelet. And it says reference 78790. And that's talking about the oyster bracelet. And they also have an option for the Jubilee bracelet, reference 62510. And both pieces 20 years ago were 2,070 pounds. All right, interesting stuff. Okay, so let's talk about the present value of this watch. Well, it just so happens I pretty much saw this watch in Shinjuku just the other day, and you can see it right here. This is an A serial. It's a 16700, and it's selling for 1,100,000 yen, which is 7,700 pounds or 10,070 USD. Now, box, but not a full set, no papers. So yours is going to be worth more. And how much would papers add to it? Well, it depends on how old the piece is. I mean, if it's a 1954 GMT, papers are going to add thousands upon thousands. But this is a 20-year-old watch, so it's pretty old. So the fact that you have papers here in Japan would add at least 1,000. I would say over 1,000. So the present value of your watch, I would say, is probably, and I'm just guessing here, but I wouldn't sell it for a pence less than 8,500 pounds. And you know what? That's kind of high, but if you can't get it this year, you can get it next year. And if you can't get it next year, you'll get it in 3 years. You'll get that price eventually. And that goes to the value of the watch in the future. They're not making this watch anymore. And for that reason, there's a set number out there. Prices are only going to go up. I mean, barring some global economic crisis. And if that happens, just sit on it. Don't sell it for a bottle of water unless you need to, and you might have to. But barring that, prices are just going up. So I would set a high price and I would stick to it. And if it takes a couple of years to sell, it will, because prices. Well, let's look at what you paid for it. Well, it was 3,195 pounds, and in USD, that's 4,177 USD in 2014. And that's when I got into Rolexes as well. And it looks like you paid about 300, only 300 more than I paid for my 1406 no date sub, and you paid, I'd say, a couple hundred more for your watch than I paid for my Explorer 2. And at the time, I remember not getting a GMT Master or GMT Master 2 because they were so much more. So it seems like in 2014, you got a really good price on this watch. And, at the time I thought, wow, GMTs are nuts. I can't get one of those. But nuts had just started, right? I ended up getting one a couple years later, and I paid 7,000 USD. And, I never thought they would go over 10 grand, but they have. And so what's the future potential for these watches? I mean, the sky's the limit. I'm not really sure, but they're not going to go lower, okay? So as far as future value, higher than it is now, all right? That's the best I can tell you, but how high it'll go, not quite sure. But he's considering selling it, and look, he never asks me if he should sell it or not, but I feel incumbent on saying I wouldn't sell it, all right? He's gotten out of all of his Rolex pieces. He sold his pieces last year, and he made a profit, and he'll make a profit from this piece. And he writes that he bought his watches as speculative investments. And look, if that's the object, you can make a buck on this 16700. But you'll probably be able to make more if you hold it. Now, that's not why I would sell it. That's not why I wouldn't sell it. I wouldn't sell it because I'd love the watch. I mean, you guys know how I feel about GMT. So you're holding in front of me a GMT and you're talking about selling it. And I just think, no, I would want to buy more if I were you. But again, that's because I'm biased and I love the piece. But if I hated GMTs, I'd be telling you the same thing, because it's cold in here. That's why my voice is shaking. The reason is because they're just going up. So I can't see a good reason to really sell this watch unless you're ready to make a profit on it. Maybe there's other investments, other things you want to buy. Maybe you hate the watch and you hate looking at it and you just want to get rid of it. But I can't see a good reason to sell this year. I see a good reason to wait and sell later, because I think you can get more for it. Anyway, it's a beautiful piece, and I hope you enjoy it. And it'll be a shame to see it go, because you'll never be able to replace it for what you paid for it. You got a great price on it, but hey, I understand. If it's got to go, it's got to go. But let Mark know what he should do. Should he sell it? I'm saying no. And if you do want to sell it, hold off as long as you can. Anyway, Thanks for the question, Mark. Take care. Put your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think about the 16700. See you next time. Hey, check out the link in the description to an excellent article by our very own Captain Danny about Rolexes in Japan. You might see somebody you recognize in the article. Check it out.